Once upon a time, if you needed extra money, you would get a second job. You would go work retail, you would pick up some seasonal work during the holidays, you would drive Uber, delivery driver, that sort of thing. But now we have the creator economy. And a lot of people here are like, oh, you can make so much money on social media. And so rather than get that traditional second job, they start YouTube channels or they try to become influencers, right? And that trend, that pattern of hopping into social spaces and social media spaces to try to build a brand or a platform or try to monetize themselves has has had a ripple effect. It is changing wealth distribution in this country. It is changing our relationships. It is changing our morality. And in this video, we're going to unpack the social consequences as well as the way that the creator economy is changing social dynamics, the way that we interact with one another, and who has money in this economy. Keep watching. Hi, I'm Dr. Shantae, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am back in my living room. Da, 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 da. The last time you saw me, I was out in them streets, y'all, out in those tennis ground streets, just trying to, make $1 out of 15 cents, creating my content. And I have missed you all. I have missed being in my seated place of comfort. So let's talk about it. A lot of people, let's talk about perception, okay? A lot of people hear these stories, okay? They're almost like urban legends, okay? But they are grounded in realities. So they hear these stories about how, look, these young kids are making like tens of thousands of dollars playing video games on YouTube. Or we hear about these luxury brand deals like, oh, I got flown out to here and I got flown out to there. And we see people with these viral videos and, living these large and in charge lifestyles. So that is the perception, right? That is the perception. On a separate video, I can talk about what people have done to keep that perception alive because people have done some really shady, underhanded stuff. And we can get into that a little bit in the morality section, but stay with me. So people hear that there's gold in them there hills. All you got to do is start a channel. All you got to do is start a podcast. All you got to do is become an influencer. And bada bing, bada boom, you'll get rich. So let me tell you, as somebody who has been creating content and brand building for, what year is it? 2020? For a little over a decade now. This is a long game. This is a long game. How many of you know people who started YouTube channels or started to try to build some sort of platform and then pretty much crashed and burned in 12 to 18 months? I sure do. You know why? Because it's a long game. When people see these viral sensations or these luxury brand deals and all the things, a lot of times what they don't see is all the work that came before that. I have a significant following on Instagram. I have hundreds of thousands of followers over there. But I used to have like 10. I used to have like 100. I used to have 12,000 and then, 20,000. And little by little, bit by bit, you just kind of keep chiseling away and, you keep swinging the axe and you show up day after day and week after week and month after month and year after year consistently with no guarantees of income or outcome. You just keep showing up and swinging the axe. Everybody is not built to do that, especially when you think about the mindset of getting a quote unquote second job. A second job usually pays instant dividends. You are trading hours for dollars. And so I work 20 hours and then I get the exchange rate on on that transaction. So if I'm making $10, $15 an hour and I work my 20 hours, then on a predictable schedule, direct deposit or check in hand, I'm going to get paid. That is the nature of the beast. But the creator economy, people tend to enter it thinking that it's going to be just like that. I'm going to make a few videos and I'm going to make a few $1,000s. What? No, it doesn't work like that. In order for you to be a creator, a successful creator, any any one of them will tell you that has been doing this for a while, it takes stamina, it takes consistency, and it takes patience. And so this get rich quick idea, this gold rush mentality that all you have to do is rush in and grab a piece of it. Yeah, it doesn't work like that. Me personally, so I have come back to YouTube after several attempts to come back to YouTube. And what I can tell you is, let's see, I came back officially the end of January. So January 30th. So from January 30th to like maybe February 26th, I had hit my threshold for monetization. But even that, right? So you got to have 1,000 subscribers, 4,000 watch hours to be monetized on YouTube. So I hit all of that, but it's not instant. Okay. So YouTube, they take time to count all of those hours. And so even though you know you've hit those hours in real time, YouTube is still calculating, so it's not instant. And then you got to set up your AdSense account. And then they got to mail you something in the mail with a special PIN number in order for you to get it set up. And then you only get paid if you clear a threshold of at least $100. And so even that process right there, okay, to even get it up and running, there's some steps involved. It's not this get rich quick. And so what I want to come in here and address is just kind of like dispelling this notion that the creator economy is a place where you rush in, grab some gold, get out, and get rich. It don't work like that. Which brings us to the copycat problem, also known as the swagger jackers. And so don't get me wrong, social media trends, okay, like kind of like the nature of the beast. So there's TikTok dances, or there's like right now, one of my favorite things is, hey mom, hey dad, what were you like in the 90s? And so you see like all of these celebrities that were super popular in the 90s, and you're like, oh my gosh, look at Keanu Reeves, look at Julia Roberts, look at Denzel Washington, look at Morris Chestnut, like, you know, Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Have you seen his? Go look at his, because baby, he looks completely different. So there are trends, right? But participating in a trend is very different than copying somebody's stilo. And that's pretty much what happens. A lot of these gold rushers become swagger jackers because they see what's trending, they see what somebody else is doing, and now they are running into the space trying to stay relevant. And so rather than come up with original ideas, rather than come up with original content, rather than add some nuance, some depth, their own spin on it or what have you, they basically see what's popular, and now all of a sudden we have the beige aesthetic. Now, all of a sudden, all the Christmas trees are these neutral browns, creams, and whites. Now, all of a sudden, you know, it's this sameness, it's this homogeneity. And the problem with that is that when you don't have an original thought in your head, when you are trying to build your platform or just really just try to get money off of trending ideas, eventually they run out, or it becomes a battle of the best, right? So it's nobody's looking at you for distinction. It's just how well did you copy? How well did you copy and paste? How well did you do this? And then people will criticize you. Oh, so-and-so's video was better. Oh, this is nothing compared to this person who did it. And now you put yourself in that category. And that's not a content creator's mentality, okay? That's a gold rusher's mentality. And so people that do this copy and paste, this swagger jacker, I'm going to steal your template, I'm going to steal some people will literally steal their content. I mean, like word for word. I have seen TikTok creators call out people that says, you know what, it's one thing to be inspired by what I do, but like you literally took this exact script word for word, practically copied my shot list. Like people don't understand there is production. Okay. What we do here, it's a production. There's pre-production, the ideas, the sketching out, how am I going to approach this, the shot list, all of that. There's production, the actual sitting on the video and doing the thing. And then there's post-production. What is the typography going to look like? How am I going to edit? Am I going to keep this part in? Am I going to keep this part out? Like that's a full-blown production. And then to do all of that work and have somebody come along and basically this is definitely getting at our morality. It's like, this is what people do for money. This is what people do to try to stay relevant. Like when you were in third grade thinking about what you wanted to be when you grow up, did you really think that, wow, I'm going to grow up and be a thief. I'm going to grow up and be a pirate. Not like a Jack Sparrow, arr, shiver me timber, top pirate. But like, I'm going to pirate somebody else's stuff for my own personal gain. I'm going to be unethical. I'm going to be immoral. Is that what you was setting out to be? Was that your aim high? Is that what you were setting out to do? And that so many people are doing it. And so anybody that's doing that, you need to have a reckoning with yourself. You need to go back to your former self and just really kind of take a step back and say, look what I've become, okay? Because that's not cool. But that is also one of the social consequences of the creator economy, that people are so desperate for dollars that they will completely wholesale steal somebody else's template for success and try to make it their own. Another place where I feel like the creator economy has kind of blurred our lines of morality are the content creators who profit from rage bait and hate. In a previous video, in the how to deal with rejection video, I noted that we are emotional creatures. We feel before we think. And so we feel and we internalize and we emote before we get into that part of our brain that processes logic. The reason why our nation, one of the many reasons why our nation is so divided, is because it is so easy to tap into people's fears and insecurities. Like, if you know how to do that, if you know how to do psyops, I mean, you will never be broke in this economy. Never be broke in this economy. To manipulate people's fears and deepest insecurities, so many of our social stratifications have been fueled by exactly that. Is this who you want living in your neighborhood? Is this who you want, dating your daughters? Oh, that fear mongering, that dog whistling. It is very easy to tap into people's base fears, insecurities, biases, the whole 9 yards, right? And so as a result, a lot of content is rage fueled, rage bait. It's the most extreme takes on gender, the most extreme takes on race, the most extreme takes on politics. And that becomes very profitable. When you think about a lot of the leaders of some of these movements, they're filthy rich. They are filthy rich because, and here's the unfortunate part about it. They don't give an ounce of a fraction about their audience. They don't care about you. They literally don't care if you don't have healthy relationships. They don't care if you and your wife can't get along. They don't care, if you are looking at other cultural groups askance. Like, they don't care. They don't care how it impacts your literal, actual daily life. What they care about is that you're paying attention, okay? Because hate, fear, insecurity, that emotional grip, it keeps people in an emotional grip and it grips their attention. And so they start kind of like watching and then they start going down a rabbit hole and then they start binging. And every video, every engagement, every yeah, is a cha-ching, 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 cha-ching for them. And in this free country of free speech and free markets and all the things, it's a very profitable model for them. So on one level of immorality, you have the swagger jackers. On another tier of immorality, you have the rage baiters. And I wonder at some point, when do we stop and take a step back and say, who am I becoming? Do I like myself anymore? Do I like feeling angry all the time? Because, that's one of the many questions. Think about it. If you have certain political leanings, think about this. If you have certain political leanings, okay, conservative political leanings, let's go that way. There's a conservative government in the White House. There are conservative leadership. So in terms of who has the House and who has the Senate, it's conservative, right? The Supreme Court, it's conservative, right? So even in terms of like the executive branch, checks and balances, all the things, they are very conservative. Like, it is very much a conservative leaning government. And if those are your leanings and your beliefs, you should be happy, right? You should be glad, like, hey, yeah, The wind is at my back. And yet, there's still so much angry content. It's like, why are you angry? You're winning. Aren't you winning? Isn't your life better? Isn't this what you wanted? So even when you get what you want, if you're still angry, if you're still rage fueled, if you're still looking sideways at your neighbor and at your family and at people who are different from you, then now that is becoming corrosive. Now it's starting to erode your sense of self. And at what point do you step back and say, what is this doing to me, to my quality of life? When I was in third grade, did I want to grow up and be angry all the time? You know what I want to be? I want to be mad all the time. I don't think that was what you were going for. I don't, we got one life, theoretically, right? Without getting too deep into other planes of spirituality. But we pretty much have like one life, right? Is this how you want to be living it? Is this how you want to be showing up day to day, angry, insecure, afraid, all the time? And if you are angry, insecure, and afraid all the time, I think it's worth taking a step back to see, how did you get here? Another sociological shift that's happening that I don't think people are paying enough attention to, and they should, and they should, and they should, is how private life is becoming public sphere. Because too many creators, not all, but too many creators are using personal conversations, private dynamics of life, things that their family just did not sign up for, and using them as public fodder for clicks and likes and engagement. Okay. So what this has created is that now you have kids who did not sign up to be on camera. And to be honest with you, in this day and age in which we live, okay, where children are very vulnerable, okay, and there are so many predatory behaviors and predatory individuals that actively look for content of children, I cannot in good conscience advise putting your child up, offering your child up for public consumption. I cannot in good conscience advise that. So, but having said that, because, oh, look at this funny thing my kid did. Oh, look at this, my kid is, and the intentions are good. Like, oh, people will get a kick out of this. This will get so many likes. People will think this is so funny, like it's America's Funniest Home Videos, right? Like, oh, look at this funny content, right? But the kids are not signing up for that, okay? Husbands and wives are not necessarily signing up for that unless they have signed up for that. Like, okay, we're going to be this creator couple. And people have fabricated stories trying to elicit sympathy. So I took this person on a date, or I was dating this guy and he totally ghosted me. And then the guy gets on camera to tell his side of the story and say, no, that's not what happened. And I have the receipts. Like, why are you lying to these people? That is not what occurred. And the thing is, that's not even a story that had to be shared. Like, what are we doing? Not just who are we becoming? These immoral acts, these likes and clicks. There's a book came out, oh gosh, probably close to 20 years ago now, called Freakonomics. By Stephen Levitt and Stephen Dubner. And the primary thesis of that book is that people are driven by incentives, financial incentives, social incentives, moral incentives, right? And this social and financial piece, incentivizing that, is that people will do immoral things. People will do morally gray things. People will embellish things in order to get engagement or to keep your attention, and not have any sense of consciousness or even conscience about what this is doing to other people. And so there are people that get hurt, that get lied on, that get maligned, whose reputations get ruined. And it's like, I did not sign up for that. Like, we went on one date or I didn't sign up for that. I'm your kid. I'm not your bank. Okay. Like, I'm not your cash cow. Like, could we not do this? And then as a kid, you're stuck in that situation because you don't have any agency, right? It's very precarious. And again, sociologically, what are we becoming in this creator economy that we're willing to throw family members and perfect strangers who were living perfectly normal, happy lives under the bus for the sake of clicks and engagement and a couple of extra dollars in the bank? I think that, again, let's take a step back, let's take a beat, and let's consider what we're really doing to people that we say we love and care about. And now let's talk about the money. I was getting to the money. Everybody mad. Okay, so I have notes here, okay? The creator economy is shifting wealth distribution in this country. And wealth, I use that term loosely because wealth is generational, it's over time, it builds, it's that kind of old money handed down from generation to generation. So when I say wealth, I'm not talking about wealth in that old money sense. I'm talking about in terms of the acquisition of capital, assets, lifestyle, that sort of thing. Tax bracket, okay, like the mobility of tax bracket. So the gender shift is very palpable. So for the record, in this day and age, very much still in 2026, there are pay gaps, wage gaps along gender lines, okay? Even to this day, women are still making less. So women, I think the latest data make somewhere to 80 cents for every dollar a man makes for doing the same job. When you disaggregate that data along color lines, okay, so we talk about race. So African American women, that number drops down to about 65%. Latinas, it drops down to about 55 cents, okay? Like the disparity is unconscionable, okay? Like on so many levels, the wage gaps are very much there, which is why this part of the conversation where gender is concerned is very relevant and palpable in how the creator economy is shifting those dynamics. So certain industries in the creator economy, specifically beauty, hair, skincare, fashion, lifestyle, heavily favor women. And those brands are eager to work with influencers or women who are willing to create content in those categories. And so we're talking sponsorship deals, we're talking brand activations, we're talking influencer marketing contracts, invitations to exclusive events. And there are quite a few women who are getting paid. Okay, I'm talking paid through these brand deals, through these activations, through these opportunities and what have you. The money conversations are starting to shift in terms of like who holds wealth in this country, who has assets and resources in this country. I think a good example of this is, and I do not watch this show, because I kind of work in social media, you see things, you hear things, right? I think the show is called Love Island. I think it's like some dating show. And one of the big stories that came out of, I guess, like the recent season was Nick Olandria. Okay. So I think the guy's name is Nick and I think the woman's name is Olandria. And she has become a standout in terms, I'm talking Vogue, Elle. She has walked runways, all of these industries, skincare, health, beauty, like all the things that I just mentioned have come at her full throttle. Now, I don't know what Nick is doing, but I know I see her face everywhere, okay? And that's a prime example of what I'm talking about. And so where once upon a time, and not even once upon a time, for centuries, women have lagged behind men in terms of wages and earnings. In some ways, women started to surpass that gap because more women tend to pursue education and higher degrees of education than men do. And so in that way, they were kind of starting to kind of shorten the gap because they were more educated. And as a result of being more educated, we're getting higher paydays and payouts. But in this creator economy, because of these specific multi-billion with the billion billion-dollar industries, a lot of these women are becoming rich, essentially, in the creator economy. And what that has kind of done, okay, so what does money have to do with relationships? Well, a lot, because it is also challenging some of the traditional roles, the traditional messaging around gender roles and relationship and who does what, who has what, who shows up with what, so to speak. I know several divorce lawyers who, and they don't just do divorce, they do family law, that are saying that women are coming into marriages now in record numbers asking for prenups. Whereas once upon a time, it wasn't like that. Once upon a time, it was men who primarily had these assets that they wanted to protect. But women in increasing numbers are coming with all this money and all these assets. And not all of them are creators, of course not. But for the reason that I mentioned earlier, so because of education, wealth acquisition, maybe they got an inheritance, and just the way that they are stewarding wealth or stewarding their assets, a lot of women have more money than, let's say, our mothers and grandmothers had when they were our age or what have you. And so as a result of this, it really is reshaping the dynamics and the relationships in terms of this idea of provider. That's a separate video for a separate day, but I think it's starting to raise the question, what does that mean? Provide what? What does that look like? And so there's a real shift happening because women in the creator economy are starting to gain real traction and secure some massive payouts that they are subsequently turning into debt-free lifestyles, lifestyles abroad, securing assets and things like that. And several of them are kind of like not pulling out of the marriage market, but are not eager to marry or delaying marriage because now they want to spend some time continuing to build their asset portfolio instead of jumping into more traditional roles of wife and mother. And the last thing that I will say, now this is purely anecdotal, but the creator economy. So from time to time, I get invited to these events. Okay. So it's like a room full of creators or it's a convening of influencers. I hate that word for me because I'm not that. Okay. I prefer content creator. So I get invited to these rooms and some of the conversations about some of these women in the creator economy in terms of like dating and what have you, is that a lot of them are fighting this perception because it's like, oh, you're so popular, you're so beautiful, you're so whatever, whatever. And they're like, yeah, men are not talking to me. They're not approaching me. And several of them have shared these stories where a man will flat out say, you got too many followers. I'm not messing with you. You got too many followers. I'm sure it's a lot of people in your DMs like, oh, you got too many followers. And so there's also this dynamic where women, and not just women, creators who are highly visible. So it's like you're seen by everybody, but also by nobody because people are making assumptions about what must be going on behind the scenes, what must be going on in your DMs, what must be going on. And so one of the unintended consequences or social dynamics that are playing out is that a lot of people who become successful in the creator economy or highly visible in the creator economy are also experiencing this like bifurcation of experience where on one hand, I'm well known or popular or highly visible. And some people see me at the airport or at a restaurant and they're like, hey, I know you, I like you, I watch your content. So they're developing these parasocial relationships with thousands of people that they don't know. But then in terms of like their actual personal relationships, there are people that are like, I'm not going to approach because you're not accessible. And they're not celebrities, okay? Like content creators, they're not celebrities, you know, a lot of them aren't. You know, there's always a select few, like maybe 5 to 8%, you know, that do these like red carpet events and things like that. But by and large, most people are not in those types of circles. But the perception is that you are now out of range, that you are now out of reach. One of the unintended consequences of creators that want to be partnered are struggling to be partnered because the perception of them is that you are inaccessible because of your visibility. You're inaccessible because there's assumption that there's lots of people's blowing up your DMs and there's just too much competition. You're inaccessible because you've priced yourself out of the market because now you make too much money, and what would you want with somebody who isn't making that kind of money? And so it really becomes these very layered and kind of complex dynamics that, again, is shaping our social experience in ways that I don't think that we ever really kind of take the time to stop and think about, like, how is this changing us? How is this changing the fabric of society? How is this changing the way that we interact with one another? How is this changing the way we think about one another? And I think that hopefully this video has given you an opportunity to consider all of those things. So that's going to do it for me. I think that people think about the creator economy like it's social media, and it is, but it isn't. To be a creator truly is a long game. It's not one stop and shop. And I say this as somebody who has created viral content. The intention was not to be viral. The intention was to create content. It just so happened to go viral, okay? And there's a lot that comes with that, because especially somebody like me, like, believe it or not, I am an introvert. Too much visibility makes me uncomfortable. I'm like, oof, because you don't know what people are going to do with your content. You don't know who they're sharing it with. You don't know how it's being talked about. You don't have any control over it once you kind of like release it. And so when it lands in millions of hands, or, you know, you get these millions of views, that can be a little destabilizing. But one of the things that I have committed to, and I say this to you as someone who is either a subscriber or a new viewer or what have you, even now being recently monetized on YouTube, I have too much respect for my audience and too much respect for my time to show up here and create things that do not resonate with me, that do not interest me, okay? And so the trend chasing, or even the way that I produce my content, you know, like, oh, I gotta have these plugins and fly-ins and these quick cuts and things like that. No. Okay, no. I want to show up and create content that resonates with me, that lands at the juxtaposition of the work that I do, which is at the juxtaposition of personal development, traumatology, and sociology. Like, that's my wheelhouse. That's my bread and butter. And so, yeah, that means that I'm probably not going to be talking about nail polish and hair products or what have you. And if I wanted to go that route, I probably could make a lot of money in those industries, but they just don't resonate with me. And so what you see is what you get. And for anybody that is in the creator space, and I think we're all kind of in it, either as consumers of the content or creators of the content, please know that the creator economy is changing the way that people make money. It's changing the way that people build influence. It's changing the way that people engage in relationships. You know, like, can we just go to lunch and not have you take a picture of every bite? Does everything have to be content? Okay. Like, it's changing so many layers of our social and lived experience that I don't think that we have fully considered yet, but it's something we absolutely need to keep our eye on. So hopefully you enjoyed this content. I missed sitting on my couch and being with you. And so if you guys have any questions, comments, takeaways, observations that you have seen in the creator economy space, and how this is shaping relationships and all the things, I would love to hear them. So feel free to hop into the comments, and I will see you guys next time.